the finished document. But it's signed in 1783 in Paris, and this officially ends the American Revolution. Yay, we're very happy about this. But what do we do next? Well, the Congress has been thinking about this since the war began, and long before the war ended, actually. When Congress was meeting in York, Pennsylvania, in that very difficult winter of 1777 to 78. You may recall from what we did in class earlier, the British Army takes over Philadelphia in the fall of 1777. The Congress has to flee. They go to Reading, and the Army is in between Philadelphia and Reading at Valley Forge. You'll recall the Army spent a very difficult winter there at Valley Forge. The Congress decided that Reading wasn't good for them to meet in, still too close to Philadelphia in case the British decided to march out of Philadelphia and capture them. So the Congress moved to Lancaster, but eventually crossed the Susquehanna River to move to York. And that's where they spent the winter of 1777 to 78. While there, the Congress decided every state should come up with its own constitution, and then the Articles of Confederation would be a loose agreement between the states to get along once the war was over. You know, it's an important thing to many of these colonies that they not be too strictly bound by any kind of central government. So every state was to make their own government, and then the 13 were going to agree to get along with each other and have some basic guidelines in the Articles of Confederation. What we really don't want in a government? Well, what's this? This is a strong, powerful arm. We do not want the government to be too strong. England had that, and we didn't like it. We just finished fighting the revolution to get rid of the king, the parliament, and their very strong central government, where we felt like we didn't have a say in what was going on. England controlled the colonies from 3,000 miles away, and we didn't want to recreate that sort of thing here. We don't want a king. We don't want a parliament or whatever you want to call it that is too strong. What we try to create is a weak central government. I got this picture from Google Images. I just Googled weak man competition winner, and there he is. There is a weak person. Well, we try to create in our national government weakness on purpose. We don't want it to be too strong so it can overpower us. This person probably can't overpower much, and that's what we wanted our government to be like. Unfortunately, what happens? Well, the unfortunate result is that America is going to be somewhat like a chocolate chip cookie. We'll use the chocolate chip cookie example because each of the individual chips kind of looks like or is going to be the 13 colonies. With the Articles of Confederation is kind of like the dough that's sort of holding them all together. But you'll notice the cookies don't, or the chips don't really have to touch each other. They don't have to get along with each other. They're kind of independent and doing their own thing. Yes, they contribute to the whole, but they're all pretty independent of each other. Well, our unfortunate result is this Articles of Confederation government is going to be too weak. It's just not able to hold the 13 colonies together. We call ourselves the United States of America. We're going to find that we are far from united. Other states may want to get along with each other if it benefits them, but we're going to find that we have such big problems that the states are kind of breaking apart. We don't see ourselves as Americans. We see ourselves as Pennsylvanians or Marylanders or Virginians or North Carolinians or New Hampshireites or whatever, but we don't see ourselves as one unified country. Eventually, we're going to need the Constitution to strengthen our government because our Articles of Confederation government will fail. So let's figure out how to use this graphic organizer to understand what the Articles of Confederation is all about. First of all, what is the Articles of Confederation? This is America's first Constitution. We've learned the word Constitution earlier in the semester, so we know that a Constitution is a basic plan of government. America's first Constitution is the Articles of Confederation. Who wrote this document and why did they write it? Well, this was written by the Second Continental Congress when we needed to establish a union for the United States in the event we won the Revolution. Of course, we know we did win the Revolution, and so the Congress was trying to be forward-looking in the winter of 1777 to 78, even though the war is not going to be over for 3 years, and peace treaties were not going to be signed for another 5 years, trying to look ahead to what America needed to be like once the war was over. Where and when was it written? It's written in York, Pennsylvania in 1778, while the Army was experiencing that very difficult winter at Valley Forge. York, Pennsylvania is very proud of its Revolutionary War history, where we are very proud that the Congress met in York and some great events were accomplished, including writing the Articles of Confederation. Remember, what we don't want in our new government is a government that is too strong. We don't want what England had. We want to create something very different. What do we try to create? Well, we try to create a government that is weak, a federal government that's weak. We want the states to be able to have more power than the federal government. We want the states to be able to run themselves. We certainly didn't like the way the British taxed us when we didn't have any representatives in Parliament. We want to make sure that that situation will not be recreated by our new government. So we're going to create a government that is weak and can't overpower the states. But, like we said a minute ago, the unfortunate result is a government that is too weak to solve its own problems. We went a little too far the other way. If the king and the parliament were too strong, well, the Articles of Confederation government is too weak. We are going to learn some stories demonstrating how the federal government didn't want to, wasn't able to enforce its own laws. The Congress could make laws, but couldn't make anyone obey them. We're not going to create a national court system. So when there is a disagreement between states, there's no national level court to go to have those problems solved. We don't have a national army. And that's a problem when certain states feel like they're going to be invaded and their own state military won't be able to do the job. There is no national military to help them out. We also don't have a national money system, and it's very confusing to do business across state lines when every state has its own money. Finally, we're going to do a story before too long called Shays' Rebellion, where we'll find that the problems of the government being so weak are going to almost lead to the state of Massachusetts being overthrown in a rebellion led by Daniel Shays. For now, we know the Articles of Confederation is our first constitution, and unfortunately, it's going to be too weak to get the job done.